Welcome to the Tangent, gentlemen. Each week we start with a topic from the previous episode, and then we see where the conversation takes us. Along the way, a question, idea, or disagreement sparks a tangent, and that tangent will become next week's topic. So this week we are on the function of deadlines. You ready to talk about this, Scott?
I am. Let's try this. I've been focusing, not procrastinating at all. Trust me. So.
You know, when this came up last episode with Neil, I was thinking, man, what in the world will we talk about for 30 minutes? But then when you really start thinking about deadlines, it could go a million different ways.
Well, I think I had said to you at one time in the interim, where my mind was going was like a really weird, like sort of deadlines related, but it was more just sort of the idea of time. Like, what is time?
Yeah.
Why do we have time? How do we measure time? Is time real? Is time something we made up? So I kind of became in my head, deadline became about sort of a time thing. Like it was a time, like it was more about something with time as opposed to an actual deadline. But I do have thoughts on the deadline, but I definitely have some thoughts on time.
Same here. And my mind went that way. And particularly how time is a struggle for humans, to grasp. But before we get into that, I was thinking just about the word deadline. I was thinking, I wonder if deadline, I wonder if it comes from death. Like, your death is the deadline. Yeah, that's the final deadline, and I was wondering if that was the case. So I looked it up. Do you know where the word deadline comes from? It's interesting.
This is the first time. No, I don't know.
So
my first inkling was like the press, like newspapers.
Close, okay. Because they did bring it back around. But the first time it was used was at Andersonville prisoner of war camp during the Civil War.
Okay.
And they had something. Well, that's another thing. When you start looking into Civil War, you talk about terrible times. I always think, anytime I'm looking at history, I always think about people today saying, man, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. And I'm thinking, man, you just need to go back and look at some of the daggone things that's happened in history, and you realize we're living in pretty good times. But anyway, that's a different topic.
Yeah.
So they had like 45,000 Union soldiers as prisoners in this place in like 16 acres.
Jeez.
And they had a rectangular fence. I think it was like an 18-foot fence. And then about 15 or 20 feet from that fence, they had a literal line. And if prisoners crossed that line, they killed them. They shot them dead.
Jeez.
And they called that the deadline.
So who managed? Was it a Union managed facility or a?
No, Confederate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And
it was in Georgia, right?
Yeah, Georgia.
Andersonville, Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And whoever was the commander or general or whatever their title is, he was charged as a war criminal, I think, at the end of the Civil War. And that term, deadline, that's what they called it, and it came up a lot in the proceedings for his trial or whatever it was. But then after that, it came back in the 1920s in journalism, like you were talking.
Okay, yeah.
And they talked about once newspaper come out, once it hit the printing press, no new stories obviously were going to get in, so they called that
the
deadline. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Civil War, like I've never been a big history person.
Yeah.
But have you ever read the book The Killer Angels?
I don't think so.
Ever heard of that book?
Mm-mm.
So it's true. I think it's in the category of true fiction.
Yeah.
And it's the 3 days. And so basically it's told as if it was the thinkings and the words of people, which are real people, and they may or may not have thought these things, but it's all around Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg, and what was Sherman thinking, what was Pickett thinking, what were the Chamberlain, what were the different generals that were there, and some soldiers, what were they thinking, and and it's exactly like you said, like you read that and you realize how just brutal, horrific this was.
Yeah.
And you just think that went everywhere from like, like I know the guy Chamberlain, General Chamberlain, he was a Union general. He was a Bostonian established gentleman, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And all the way down to like, a soldier. And like they all were dealing with horrific events. I mean, Gettysburg was brutal, and
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's just, I think, I agree with you. I feel like I have to remind myself of that at times when I think, man, things are just so bad right now.
That's because you're old. That happens to old people.
Is that what we do? Is that what we do? So that's not deadline. That's not that we're not. It's not literally our deadline, right? We're not
we hope that deadline
for me. Yeah,
we hope that's a little ways off still.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Yeah, it is though. When I was looking that up, that just I think like 30% of the prisoners there died of things like hookworms and dysentery and things like that, starvation.
Well, that's when like the history of medicine and surgery. I mean, that was some of the early examples of just they did surgery in those conditions, and they might have done great surgery, but you're doing it in a filthy, whatever hospital field doesn't matter.
They might have had the sharpest bone saw on the battlefield,
but they used it on everybody, so that was not good.
And the best whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know about that. I bet I can only imagine how bad some of that stuff was.
Oh, man.
I mean, probably. Right. We talk about, years in a barrel. It was probably like ever saw a barrel, maybe a week in a barrel, so who knows?
All right, getting back to deadlines, man.
All right, back to topic. So like I said, I kind of got into this whole idea of time and like how do we value time and mark time, and then how that sort of gets translated to when you have a task, because to me typically deadlines are associated with some task.
Mm-hmm.
Do you evenly divide up that time, and then why is the time that's 2 days before the task, which is the same time? I mean, it's the same unit of time, right? It's the same rise of the sun or whatever you want to call for your time measure. Why is it perceived? Why do we perceive it differently? Why are we more productive in that latter part? Are we,
that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And is it false? Is it false urgency?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And is it needed, and is it productive? I personally, as much as I hate to admit it, I think it is productive.
Yeah.
I think you do tend to be a little more productive in your, you get a little bit, again, it's, I guess because of physics, I think of time as like a unit of a rate, so it's events per time, meters per time, distance per time, whatever. So when you're talking about deadlines, it ends up being product per time, accomplishment per time. Yeah. And how that happens. And I don't know if I know from working with you, you were always real big on, we're jumping in, we're starting tomorrow, but we're going to revisit in a week or something like that. That seemed to be your kind of, I don't know if it was always a week, but there was always we're getting in, we're going to see what happens, and then we'll evaluate, X number of days from now.
Yeah. Ready, fire, aim approach.
Yeah. And that idea that having both that real time deadline close, like tomorrow, we're doing this, but then also that real time deadline of evaluation in 2 or 3 weeks, in some ways that seemed like to me to be the best of both worlds. Because I am what's our friend Nick say about me? I am guilty of analysis paralysis. I want to think through every possible outcome before I act. And that's not a good, that's kind of like anti-deadline in some ways.
Yeah. You wouldn't make it at Amazon.
I probably wouldn't.
Have you ever heard of Jeff Bezos's day one philosophy?
No.
So he says that he operates Amazon, as large of a company as it is, just like it's a small startup, day one of a small startup.
Okay.
And some of the stuff's good. I mean, you hear terrible things about Amazon's, work personal life balance, and you know, I don't think they have. I don't think they're known for having high employee satisfaction rates. But when you're talking, some of the stuff that he talks about is like, we should make decisions when we have 70% of the information, not wait for 90%. We should be willing to take risk and jump in. We should take advantage of new technologies and not fight new technologies and things like that. I think I'm getting this right because of day one. His day one philosophy.
Do you think that's a consequence or sort of a luxury that's allowed because of their degree of success? Or do you feel like early on they operated that way? I mean, because this is kind of randomish, but hey, that's what this is about, right?
Yeah.
So I have this friend, are you familiar with the Dave Ramsey?
Yeah, the money guy. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. But you know how he has this idea of you should have envelopes?
Yeah.
And you should have allocated envelopes, and you should only spend
when you're starting out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who's pretty wealthy, and he's, I'm a big believer in the Dave Ramsey method. I'm very adherent to my envelopes. I'm like, yeah, but starting out, your envelopes are a lot fatter than anybody else's envelopes, so it's really not much of a strain for you to spend $200 on dinner. You're not really exercising any discipline.
Yeah.
Because you've got $1,000 in your food budget for the month or week or whatever.
It's all relative, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but
I mean, there's somebody that thinks your envelopes are pretty daggone fat. I'm sure.
Oh, sure. No, I agree.
Yeah.
They do, and knock on wood, sometimes they are. I mean, but they. I guess what I'm saying is that's Bezos's philosophy of, we'll take this risk and deal with the consequences. It's a lot easier to deal with the consequences when you're Amazon in 2025, as opposed to a startup we've never heard of in 2010. We've never heard of them because they took that risk, and guess what? Sorry, it didn't work out. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, it's what's the phrase? The victors tell the story, or the victors write the history, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a case of, hey, this is the way we've always done it? And maybe they did. I mean, I don't know.
And it worked out. But did it work out for every startup?
Right. Well, obviously no. I mean,
did it work? Yeah. Did it work out for everybody that started selling books online or whatever it was? It did.
Well, I read once that their true success, and this is kind of marketing genius. They came into this with the philosophy of, we are going to lose money on every Kindle that we sell, but we want people to become like dependent, if you will, on the Kindle, and we will be the only book supplier for the Kindle. So they were willing to flood the market with Kindles and lose money, but then be the supplier of the product for the Kindle.
Yep.
And and that's a pretty ingenious marketing strategy, whether you think much of Bezos or not. I mean, that is an interesting model. And then I think they just extended that to pretty much everything. You can get anything you want on Amazon, pretty much. So,
well, Amazon's main moneymaker now, that's cloud services. No, that's
really,
yeah. They make most of their money from that AWS, I think they call it. But they're just selling servers and data storage now, and that's the biggest bulk of their profit.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yep. Matter of fact, I think Netflix uses Amazon for their servers.
Yeah, that's a weird one, isn't it? Netflix. Did you ever? Were you an early subscriber to Netflix when they were just DVDs by mail?
Oh yeah, yeah. And a matter of fact, there was a company called Games and Movies or something generic like that.
Yeah.
And Cindy was dealing. She got into penny stocks at one point in her life,
right?
And Netflix and Games and Movies were both pretty cheap at the time, and she invested in Games and Movies.
Okay. See, I was thinking of that when you said the startups. Clearly, well, maybe some startups didn't succeed. And I think, yeah, that's got to be the case, right? Because, all the penny stocks, I played around with it for a while. And honestly, I decided I'd rather spend my time and money in sports gambling than penny stocks, because it ended up being about the same number of hours or minutes or whatever per day. Again, back to time. But it's the same idea, right? You buy all these penny stocks and then, 99% of them do nothing. And one of them becomes Amazon or whatever, or Doge. Wasn't Doge? Remember when Doge was the thing?
Well, we
Doge
found,
coin,
yeah. Well, we found out during her stint in that they are controlled. They are extremely controlled by social media. There's so many people with hundreds of thousands of viewers that get on there and talk about this next hot penny stock. And of course, they probably bought 10 million shares before they put out this video. And then the video comes out and everybody buys it and then they dump it.
Right. I always think that way. I mentioned the sports gambling and, I'm into that a little. These people that come on and they're like, oh, I got the answers to sports gambling and, for whatever, $12 a month, I'll share them with you. And I'm thinking, I don't pay the money, but I'm thinking, yeah, the answer for you for sports gambling is to get 1,000 people each month to pay you $12. And then suddenly you're making $12,000 a month, whether you sports gamble well or not.
Or what about the companies themselves having their top bets on the page as soon as you open it up? Hot bet.
Oh my gosh. Well, for the longest time, when ESPN had, ESPN Bet, they sold it now, but ESPN Bet, they had their own bookie. They had their own book. And you turn on ESPN, any ESPN event, and they're telling you, oh, the lines and this and that and this parlay. And I'm just like, it's just, I don't know. I like it. I really enjoy sports betting. And I guess I've been successful at it, to a certain degree. But I really think it's a bad thing. I really do.
Yeah. Addiction wise, you mean, or just?
It's definitely a bad thing addiction wise. And I think it's a bad thing in terms of what it does to sports.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And what especially college. I think about college, but you think about some kid, I know kids are getting NIL money in college now, but you're the third forward starting for Cleveland State, you're not getting a whole lot of NIL money.
Yeah.
And some guy comes to you and says, look, this is what I need you to do. I need you to get 5 rebounds tonight. Not 6, not, but no more than 5. That's all I want. You can get 5, but that's it. And I'll give you $30,000.
Yeah.
And how do you turn that down if you're that kid?
Yeah.
How do you say, no, I can't do that. I have ethics or whatever.
And it definitely happens.
It happens at, call out Cleveland State. No offense to Cleveland State. But, you pick your small, I bet it's big. You pick any college.
I'm going to go back to Amazon before I lose my thought, because what took me there was, you talked about deadlines. You think that they do lead to production and innovation, positive results. And I do think that's the case, but I do think there are some expenses on the human side, and like Amazon's one of them that I think of, or, I think, you read about Elon Musk and his unrealistic deadlines. And, if you go back to Steve Jobs, God rest his soul. Did I say his last name right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And, as soon as I said it, I started thinking about Job in the Bible, and I said, Steve Jobs? So Steve, Steve Jobs. And I think I read one time he had like a 80% turnover rate, so there's a huge employee turnover rate. So there's a huge human expense to unrealistic or super high pressure deadlines. Because I believe as humans, we are more productive with a moderate and healthy level of stress or pressure, pressure, whatever you want to call it. But if it gets to a certain point like that, yeah, I mean, obviously Apple turned out some innovations that are head and shoulders above anybody ever, and Amazon's doing things that who would ever dream, you know. You can order just about anything on Amazon now. Elon Musk, but, you know, I think you got to not care about the human side of it, because there's probably not a lot of high employee satisfaction surveys.
Do you think they self-select their population? Do you think that, so let's say on day one, they have 100 employees. I mean, I'll make this up, right? 100 employees. On day two, they have 20, but they go out and get 80 more. So on day two, that 20 that stayed, they stay. And then of that 80, 80% of them, so 64 of them leave, you know, so now they've got 36 employees. And do you think by the end of the month or the end of some time frame, they've populated with people that like that thrive in that do that? And you know, at some point, that's what you do, right? I mean, you know, you and I have had this conversation in lots of ways. For about 10 years, you, under your leadership, we turned around a struggling school. But we did it because we had people that were willing to do the work and ask the hard questions, and people that weren't left.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
And I think that might be part of it. You just create that population that they are anomalous. You know, they're in that 20%, but they are driven by that. I mean, you think about some of the people, some of the teachers we worked with. I mean, people that I think you and I agree are some of the best teachers I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
You know, and they stuck around. They dug in. They bought in. They believed in it. And they valued the product, you know. And I think if you worked at Apple early on and you started making these things and you started seeing, hey, these, you know, the iPod, what an amazing thing. You know, you carry around music and, you know, then you can, you know, get into early iPhones and whatever. I think those people really like that, and they're willing to endure that because they don't see it like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about my own case, and probably in our situation, for me, I really believed in what I was doing, and I was willing to do the things that needed to be done, and, you know, work the 80-hour weeks. But, you know, looking back on it, I wasn't as healthy and happy as I am now in retirement.
Well, right. That's right. But I would argue, because I was there with you for part of it, we didn't mind being there until 6 o'clock.
Absolutely not.
And I think if we did go home at 2:30 or say 3:30, I don't know that we'd have been that happy.
No,
I don't know
I agree.
That we'd have been a happy version of ourselves, because we'd have been, I mean, you know, I don't know. You can't say, because, you know, it didn't happen that way, but it could have been, we'd have been a version of, I don't really care about that, which is kind of a denial of what we really believed or what we really felt. Or we would be fretting over, I should have stayed and done X, Y, or Z, you know?
Yeah.
And I do remember one time you were willing to have a little fun, and then you had to go back to work. I do remember. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to name names.
But you know that what you just said made me feel a little bit better about some of these guys that I just mentioned, because you know, I still look back on those times and I still feel good about what I did, and I wouldn't change anything that we did, you know, during those years. And maybe they feel the same way, you know, because I think you know, technology and probably like, you know, we were talking a little bit about the stock market, but probably like big investment companies and things like that. You know, you just kind of know if you go in that field, you're going to be in a high pressure, high stress, quick decision environment.
Yeah. Right.
And so, I was thinking very negatively about it at first, but I think some people would be driven to that. You know, and it's probably not something that you can do for forever, but I mean, when I was in the midst of that, and you were saying the same thing, I was energized by that.
Right.
I was energized by the expectations we had of ourselves.
The part, as was I. I mean, I've said, I hope I've said it to you, and I've said it to lots of people. me leaving the district job I had and coming back to work with you the last 10 whatever years, it like revitalized me. I mean, I felt like I remembered why I became a teacher. Like the help to look at actually I just visited our friend Brian Quillen today, to work with the Quillens and the Downies and the Brewers and those people. I mean, you just realize these people, they're in it for the right, for the reasons that I thought were the right reasons.
Yeah.
One point I wanted to make about the high pressure, whatever. The one that's for me that's hard, and I think and I have some friends that have fallen into this. When you're driven by money, that's infinite. That is, they want. There's always somebody richer, and you want to be that. If you're driven by acquiring that material wealth, if that's your driver, I kind of find, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to make that a moral thing. I don't want to make that a judgment thing. But I've observed that those people struggle to find that achievement goal. Like we seem to be driven by something else. And I have a good friend that he is a tech guy. When he started several tech companies and been very successful. And he was like that. He would work 12, 15 hours a day, and I would go visit him, and he lived out of town, and I'd go stay with him for a couple of days, and he would just be working all the time. And when I would see him, he just was so invigorated by it all and so energized by it all. And in the end, he ended up making a fair amount of money because of the products he did, but he was never really in it for the money. I mean, the money was nice, I'm sure, but he seemed to be about solving the problem, creating a network or creating a framework that could solve a problem and help somebody. Like that seemed to be his driving force. Yeah. And I have friends who have seemed to be driven because they want to make more money. And that's to me, that's a dangerous one because it's not,
I don't know how
unattainable,
I don't know how you could even keep that level of energy and engagement and attention and focus that you need to have in those types of situations if you didn't feel like you were in something that was very important.
Yeah, but I have friends that is important.
Money's a very important piece.
Having more money, dropping the right name, getting your kid in the right school, and it's all these things that it's just like, and that's where, like you said about retirement, I went to visit one of them not long after I retired, and I commented on, the most valuable thing I have is time.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, the fact that I can come down here and hang out with you for 3 days and just wander around and go out to dinner or have a drink or two. And that's that. Well, why? I'm like, because where are you going to buy that? You can't buy that. I don't care how much money you make. You're never going to buy that, So I don't know, but it's tough. I mean, When
I was thinking about deadlines, I even went probably a little more, I don't know if philosophical would be the right word or not, but with what I was thinking about time. I was thinking about, I feel like the reason we struggle with time as humans is probably age old. It's just we can't grasp the idea of it. We can't grasp time in itself. We see changes in things happening. Right. We see the sun rise and we see it move through the sky. But, we're not really seeing time. We're
seeing events.
Yeah, we're seeing these events that we've made time. We've made that sunset and that sunrise. We've decided that's one day, and
right.
We've
which even then, the funny part about that is how arbitrary and sort of wrong that is. It's like a year is 365-ish days. A month is about 30 days. It's the moon, but it's not really the full rotation. It's so it's funny. There's a movie we just watched last night actually called Train Dreams.
Yeah,
it's a nominated for Academy Award for Best Picture, and it's about this guy, and I guess it starts in about 1870-ish. He's a logger. He works in the Pacific Northwest, Idaho, I think he's in. and it just talks about his life and how, just sort of his life experiences of working in that, being a logger and what that meant and that time. And then it ends up going along up into the 20th century. And we got to talking about it afterwards, like that time, like that slice of time, when you look at the events from 1870 to 1950 or 1960, like
200
how
years?
the war,
200 years?
No, 1870 to 1960.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 90 years.
Yeah.
Like just how, to your point about marking events for time, like when you think about what was time like in 1880, and how, because I would say probably most people didn't have a watch.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have, I mean, I would seem if you were wealthy, you had a watch. I mean, I never saw this guy look at a watch in the movie. He would get up in the morning when the sun came up and he would walk till he got on a logging crew, and then he would work there for so many months until the weather changed, and he would walk back to or take a train back to where he lived. And, and you just think about, I was just thinking about it because when you talk about how we mark time, and, now people want to mark time in the second or the minute at least on their phone or their watch or whatever. I'm a big watch guy, but people have iPhones and they're like, it's exactly, 8:17. I'm like, is it really though? I mean, really? I don't know. And I bet. So I don't know. I mean, it is an interesting thing when you think about humans and how is that in us? Is that in our species that we need to mark time, you think?
Well, I think it's in us to try to dominate things and dominate nature so that whoever was his foreman on the logging crew probably said, boy, we could sure get a lot more done if we could get everybody here right at sunrise. And, so somebody decided how to make a clock so we could make a deadline. Yeah. Everybody's got to be here by 7 o'clock. You need to be here by 7 o'clock, and we need to have 300 trees cut down by the end of the month. So we're going to do 10 today.
Yeah.
Got to have 10. We got to down 10 trees today by 4 o'clock or whatever it might. So, it's just a way to be more productive and get more things built and be more civilized.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting as the movie went on, at some point, because, initially it's all hand tools. They're falling these trees by hand.
Yeah.
They're, milling them by hand. I mean, it's just, they don't go too much into that, but you can see what's going on. And then later on, it becomes, gasoline powered tools, and, they're diesel powered, and they're and then chainsaws. And it's just that idea about, again, what was a productive day when he first started versus what was a productive day halfway through his career.
Oh, yeah.
Again, the deadline changed, the time changed. And there was an older logger in it, and he would just talk about our, the relationship with the forest and the trees. And we got to, kind of a little bit of, it's we need each other.
Yeah.
And we got to be respectful of that. And so. But yeah, it is interesting. I don't know. I mean, back to our original point, I feel like we have to recognize that deadlines are useful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, since, I don't think we can grasp time. So we put, so to me, when I think about the way we start measuring time, which is what we're talking about now, and you get all the way down to the clock, and while you're talking about that, I was thinking about the Olympics. At one point, I bet the Olympics were, measured in tenths and then hundredths, and now we're getting into thousandths, and you still have ties. But we start measuring days and months and years, and then hours and minutes and seconds. And to me, like deadlines is just a next step with that, kind of putting a line in this, a line in the sand, just so you got this continuous flow of time that we can't. Right now, new minutes being made. right now, new minutes being made, and the guy just kind of flows forever and ever. And we've got to break it into segments. And that's what we do with deadlines.
Yeah. And you're right. We put an event. We put a tangible event. Got to have 5 of these by Friday or whatever, So
because time is definitely, it's not always the same. I mean, there's we talked about it at some point in one of our earlier podcasts. Car wrecks that we were in, came up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I remember, during that car wreck, I remember time slowed down and then it sped up. I could see everything spinning in slow motion when we got rear-ended at 60 miles an hour. And then the next thing I know, and I wasn't knocked unconscious because I asked, the next thing I know, all the EMS people were there, and everything's they were just there. It just happened so quickly. So it's
have you read Blink by Malcolm Gladwell? It's one about.
I don't think.
Why are some people good at quick decisions?
I don't know if I've read that one or not. Yeah. I've read some of his books
because it talks about.
You always ask me about movies and books, so I think I probably shared this with you before, but I need to let you know. I never remember the title of a book I read. I very seldom remember the author, and I can watch a movie 3 times because I never remember it.
Well, that's good though. That's valuable. That makes them so much. Okay, well, see, I'll give you a list of these are 10 great movies. You can watch them 30 times over the next year. It'll be great. I think in Blink, I think it was Blink. He talks about this idea of what do you call it? I think he called it temporary. I can't blindness or temporary. I want to say he may have actually called it autism, and they were interviews with people who have fired a gun, not casually, but in a setting, and like police officers for the most part.
Oh yeah.
And they all, or not all, a large percentage of them report exactly what you were saying. They have no sensory memory of anything except for one thing. And it was never the same thing. But some people would say, oh, I remember that woman was wearing a yellow shirt. Or I remember they were playing music in the background and it was the Beatles. And it's that idea about how we sort of capture time or something about time, how do we take an event that happened in a normal span of time, I-65, the car spinning around, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But time as we know it, our brain filters out our regular sensory pieces of time. And I don't know. I mean, that's a fascinating thing. How do we, what is the benefit? Is there a evolutionary benefit for us and the ability to detect time and to know that time passes and that it's been so many days or it's been,
And that, I mean, have you found that's changed with you? I was talking to Cindy, my wife, the other day about this. I've lost a lot of the sense of what's happened in the past in terms of time. It's hard for me to know if something happened 2 years ago or 10 years ago now.
Oh yeah.
And when I think about it, I had this period of time while, we had a family of 4, I had a son and a daughter. Big events I kind of remember when they happened by how old Brent and Tia were.
Yeah.
This happened when they were in elementary school. This happened when Brent was playing football at Fairdale High School. This happened when Tia was running track at Murray State. And now that I don't have anything like that, and I don't work, and Cindy's retired now, it's I really don't know if somebody's talking about something. I really don't know. Somebody could tell me that something happened, something that happened 2 years ago happened 10 years ago, and I wouldn't be able to argue.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I mean, I have that same, and I've always had that. And for the longest time, I felt bad because I have to really stop and think about, because sadly, I've lost quite a few people in my life. My parents have both passed. I've had 2 siblings pass, Aaron's sibling passed. And I have to stop and think about the sequence of those events and put them in. And I do the same thing. I for my touchstones, I go back to, I remember my brother when Evan was playing with him. I remember how old Evan was when he was playing with him.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of gives me a point of reference. Or I remember an event that my brother and I did towards the end of his life. And so that, but I can't, now I'm the same way. Like, you know, things that have happened in the past 6 or 7 years, I just kind of, was it 2 or 6 years ago? I'm not sure.
So whatever it is that's going on in the human brain with trying to grasp this immaterial, intangible thing that just flows on forever called time. Whatever that is just what we're trying, you know, I think we're trying to help in an environment where we've got to produce things and be productive with deadlines. You know, we're separating that into chunks. Yeah.
Right. The thing I was just thinking is deadlines create this overlay that are sort of temporal markers. Mm-hmm. And our brain is working in that frame during those times. And now that we've kind of moved out of that somewhat, they're not, the markers aren't as fixed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's true. I don't know. I mean, it could just be we're getting old, Brad. I mean,
so I guess what we're doing.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to project that onto you. I
guess what we're doing with the deadline then is we are artificially placing an event in this timeline. That event's being the deadline.
Yeah. All right. Let's give a grade. What do you think?
All right. So
are deadlines useful? A good thing? Bad thing?
Yeah, I think overall, I'm gonna say we do really well with managing time with deadlines as a human species. I'm gonna say a B+.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's a solid B+. More good comes out of it than bad.
Yeah,
I tend to think.
And then I liked what you said about, you know, I do believe, okay, maybe if these people in the tech world are leaving Apple because they can't handle the pressure of the deadline, maybe they're just not, you know, maybe that's just not the field for them. I'm sure those loggers thought things were moving very fast when they went from handsaws to chainsaws. Right. And you know, tech is moving. Yeah. I mean, the speed of tech.
Right.
I mean, who could keep up with it?
I think I present sort of as support for the argument is there's the other side of that. There are the people, and I'm not one of them, who can be involved in an artistic process that is just flow and feel and just very subjective, nuanced things. That would drive me crazy. I couldn't work in that like that. But those people can, and those people, you know, win Academy Awards and are amazing musicians, and they have that ability to just sort of opposite of deadlines. And I wonder if that's, you know, I know a little bit about some famous musicians as far as the albums they produced, like, and just how volatile and explosive those things were. And I wonder if that's because they were people who function well in the no deadline world of art and music. But when you go into a studio, I don't know, I've never done it, but you're paying by the minute or the hour, and you've got to produce this product by, you know, April 1st.
Yep.
And these are not by April 1st people. You know, that's just not what they do. So maybe there's the other end of that too. And so maybe some of those 80% who Bezos fired, you know, they wrote great albums. I don't know.
You know, I've never thought about it that way. You know, I know a lot of musicians in doing Top Reel Recording podcast. I never thought about it that way. So you have these creatives that are writing songs, playing songs, you know, and they do struggle. You know, it's like you finally just got to decide, hey, this song, I got to put a period on it. It's done. I mean, it can go on forever and ever. I mean, you can refine a song forever and ever, and it's good to do that. But then they got to turn around and they got to enter a totally different mindset when they go into studio and they're spending this, you know, high dollar amount per hour to get this put on a recording. And I people do struggle in the studios. Musicians do sometimes, and I never thought about it that way. But
so I don't know.
But it is freeing. It is freeing to do creative stuff too, and just kind of see what happens, and
Yeah, see, I'm finding, because since I've retired, I've tried a few different things, and I've never, like, I started painting.
Yeah.
Trying to do. My dad was a really good painter, so I thought maybe I'll try to paint.
Maybe you got some of the genes.
Maybe. And it's hard. It's hard. I hate to say this out loud, but it's hard for me because I keep thinking about the product, and I know that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be about the process.
Yeah.
And I just find myself thinking, well, at this rate, it'll be, December before I get this done. And I just got to remind myself, it's not about that. It's not about that. This is just so I kind of started like.
Do you feel yourself slip into that mindset sometimes and kind of feel like, oh, I'm feeling it?
So what I do now, what I found is the best combination is I have a pretty extensive vinyl collection that I haven't listened. I mean, it's just most of it's older stuff. And so I'll just pick an album and I'll paint while I listen to that album. And like the combination of those two things, like I can immerse myself into the album, and I think a lot about when this album came out, what was I doing, who did I know, who was I hanging with, whatever. And that is what sort of blows my mind to where I'm just, next thing I know, I'm finished with this part of the painting and I feel pretty good about it. So so I guess, I kind of find a way. I mean, it's like I read about these artists, like, well, they smoked opium and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going there. I have a drink and listen to some,
Get you a mushroom chocolate bar sometime.
Exactly.
Let's see if it helps.
Listen to some band from the 80s I haven't thought of in a while, but I don't think I'm going to get into the opiates or anything. So,
all right. Well, let's, let me,
okay. We're all over the map.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. What you got?
You want me to read mine first?
Sure. Go ahead.
Oh, gosh. Painting or the arts, creative minds, money, stock market, sports gambling, penny stocks, a cloud, Dave Ramsey, Amazon, Civil War, historical fiction, ancient medical procedures, and logging.
Okay. All right. We got a lot of overlaps. I got sort of the evolution of time awareness. I don't know. I feel like we've worked time a lot. The Olympics, human expenses or cost to your humanity, decisions versus risk, work-life balance, and then finality. So.
Man, we're going to narrow this down. I'm looking at my list. What I
liked your list better than mine.
When you read your list, one thing that stuck out to me was the Olympics. I love the Olympics.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we may have missed our time. We maybe should have done this one 2 weeks ago, but oh well.
All right. I love the idea of the Olympics. Let me say that. I don't watch hours and hours of the Olympics. Yeah. I just love the idea of the Olympics. Okay. And I always think back to when USA was at war with Iran. You remember wrestling in the Olympics? It was almost every final was America versus Iran. Do you remember that?
No, I don't at all. No.
And maybe I'm remembering it wrong. There were several American-Iran finals or matches or something. And
so this is in like the 80s? Are you talking about like the hostage crisis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, back it was probably when I was in high school. I graduated high school in 1985, so sometime during the 80s, early 80s. And just remembering those guys interact and the respect and all the things that go along with athletics when their countries are at war, and just thinking about the push and pull of all that.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. I like that. Let's go with that. We both wrote that down. I like it.
Okay.
All
right. So what's going to be the topic?
I didn't go over my repeats. If we repeated, I didn't mention it twice. But yeah, I like that.
What's going to be the topic? Just the Olympics? Spirit of the Olympics?
Yeah.
Spirit of the Olympics?
Yeah.
All right. All right, Scott. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Yep.
All right. We'll see you guys.
All right. Bye.